The Sandy and Toddcast is a Mindgarden Media podcast in association with
Screw You, Todd
Productions.
Broadcasting from two very different yet magical places not found on any map. Get ready to discuss the strange, weird, ghostly, crazy, spooky, and odd things that take place around us each and every day. All while having a little bit of fun. This is the Sandy and Toddcast.
Well, it's another episode of the Sandy and Toddcast, and this time Todd's not with me. Dave and I are going to do a little bit of a bonus episode in between. Todd had to work this weekend, and of course, next weekend is Memorial Day weekend, so we'll be off for a couple weeks. That's why I wanted to invite the hubby in to do a little bit of a bonus episode with
Todd's stand-in. And you know what's kind of funny? We were just talking before you hit the start button about weird things and how everybody's weird. And does everybody have like thousands of songs in their head? Because I have a jukebox that plays in my head nonstop. Some songs are obscure. I have no idea why. You
know what's funny is that I do. And I think pretty much everybody does, because we grow up just hearing so many different songs, you know, whether we like them or dislike them, because sometimes I find that the songs I hated are the ones that I can't get out of my head a lot of the time. But, and so just random things will happen, or I'll just be sitting there and a song will come into my head, and then I can't get it out for a while.
That happens all the time for me for years and years. Especially
with us having been before, and you now still after all these years in radio. I think it's just kind of ingrained in us that we're kind of musically enhanced. I don't know if that's the right word, but we're certainly not musically talented, but maybe, you know, we just notice things more. I don't know.
We're just weird.
We're just weird.
Which leads us to another episode.
Yes, another episode. We're going to do a little bit of weird news in just a few minutes, but first, I wanted to talk to you about what's going on in my studio because, as I just said to you a little while ago, Todd and I have done the Spirit Box session. I've done personal Spirit Box sessions and gotten some cool stuff. And Todd and I are actually going to go over a recent one I did not too long ago when I had some more crazy stuff going on in my studio. You've heard those results too. So Todd and I all season long have been talking about what's weirdness has been going on in my studio. Now, I always get weirdness in my studio. That's not new. I have been having things fall over, different stuff, but it's every few months, it's random, and then all of a sudden, after we went to Saranac Lake and did an investigation, a paranormal investigation, and then that following day, after we got home, that Monday was the total eclipse, and that like 3 days of the total, during and after the total eclipse, everything went berserk in the studio. And so you actually were there with me every step of the way. I was taking pictures of things that were happening. We were trying to get video of it.
Yeah, we put a blink camera up here trying to get video. I guess it's constant, and that's the one word. I don't have an answer. I don't know why, but I know it's been constant because I remember one time we came up early on trying to figure things out, and you asked me if I had knocked something over because I hadn't even noticed it was on the floor.
That was at the very beginning of that 3 days of insanity, and then it just stopped. But for a while, not permanently, But yeah, and it was like 3 days of craziness. And at first I thought maybe you had come in and done something, knocked something over. I couldn't figure out why my Scooby-Doo figurine was falling over. And not just falling over, it was literally being launched off of my gun cabinet. And there's an ornament that I have that's on a suction cup that sits there for weeks and months at a time, not doing anything, and then all of a sudden gets knocked off the gun cabinet as well.
And we've tried to get him off. That's the thing. We've actually tried. We've slammed doors and we've moved things and we've stomped on the floor and hit the wall, and nothing happens. It doesn't even rock. It doesn't shake.
What's funny is that we'll literally pound and things around them will fall down. but no, they won't. They will not fall down. So, I don't know. We've debunked our hearts out. We don't know other than, Todd and I have talked a lot about this. If you follow the show, especially this season, you've heard us talk about this. Todd believes, and I tend to at this point have to agree with him, that I am drawing these spirits to me because they feel safe and they feel like maybe I can help them. And a lot of times when you have psychic abilities, things like that will happen. Not to mention the fact that I have a growing crystal collection, which, again, crystals hold energy, maybe also drawing these spirits. So that's what we're getting from this, especially after the Spirit Box sessions, the one that we've aired so far, and then the personal one that I did. I'm really starting to be drawn towards that idea, too.
And it seems to only happen in that spot where the little Scooby-Doo things are, because it doesn't happen in our bedroom. It doesn't happen in the living room. Even with cats and a dog, we don't see things unusually knocked over or missing. And that's part of the mystery as well, that it's only happening here.
And this studio is like Fort Knox. I mean, for negative energy. I have selenite bars on the top of my door, on the top of my window, on the windowsill. I have so much protection around this space. I've set boundaries numerous times. I do it on a regular basis. So it's interesting because a lot of people say, oh, you have ghosts, but I don't have ghosts. We do not have ghosts in this home. We do not have resident spirits in this home. We do not. So that's why we think that the only possible explanation, and what I do believe to be true, and I'll tell you why in a minute, is that I am attracting these spirits who are, maybe they're confused, or maybe they know that I can help them, and they're just trying to get some help.
Maybe, to use an audio term, they like the dead sound in here.
Maybe they do.
That refers to the quietness, because we have the foam panels on the wall, which kind of quiets things. And so we've always used that as a term. It has a dead sound. And so it's kind of ironic.
Maybe that's true. Maybe we've heard several times, not only on the Spirit Box session recording that Todd and I did, but the one I recently did, the word safe. They feel safe. So that's what's been going on. And I just thought, for somebody who many years ago, when we first met, was actually a pretty strong skeptic. And I still believe I am still a skeptic myself. That's why we debunk everything first, or at least attempt to. You're still a skeptic, but now I'm just kind of curious as to, you've experienced this craziness. What is going, what do you think?
I had never been through any of that. I had never seen, witnessed, watched any of the TV shows. I think the first one was one of the Ghost Adventure type shows. Mm-hmm. And I had never, so I really didn't even know what to make of that. I just thought, okay, whatever. And so, but now living through it and going through it and investigating through it, I've actually seen and heard and been part of some of that. So it's a different outlook than it was back years ago.
Needless to say, it's pretty wild. I tell them, you are welcome to be here. I do not allow negative energy or negative spirits or any negativity, not only in the studio, but in my home, and also on my property that I own.
Or on Facebook. A little comic relief.
Yeah. But I don't. And I set my boundaries on a regular basis. But I do tell them, if you want to come here, if you do feel safe, if it makes you feel better to be here as opposed to be wandering, I don't know for sure. I never will know for sure what happens. But you're welcome to come and visit. You're welcome to be here. And that's what I say. And it's interesting because after the craziness during the whole eclipse period, I remember doing sort of it's my own personal little releasing sort of meditation where I asked St. Michael to come over and bring them with him and to help release them from whatever binds them here. I do believe that they're not physically bound, they're emotionally bound. They bind themselves to locations. They do have, in essence, they do have the free will to come and go as they please. They just sometimes don't understand that they do. So I prefer to call it releasing. I will say after I did that, it did feel so much lighter in here, if even for a little while. And then all of a sudden, a couple weeks later, they both did it at the same time. The ornament fell down and the Scooby got launched all at the same time. And I remember I was looking at my computer and my gun cabinets to the right, and it was like something out of like a horror movie / kind of a comedy, because I just froze in place and I just slowly turned my head after a couple seconds. I processed it, and sure enough, they were on the floor.
And really, for like a couple of months or several months before that, there was nothing going on. It just seemed like a quiet period.
Not there. Yeah. It was very quiet. And I do believe my friend Trey comes to visit me. But now it's sort of gone into the next level where I feel like, okay, well, Trey comes to visit me. There's no doubt about that. We know from the Spirit Box sessions, we know from things that happened right after he passed, all that kind of stuff. We know that's happening, but now we've kind of expanded, apparently, and there are spirits coming through who need a safe haven, need a place to stay. It's safe in here because there is no negativity allowed. So, interesting thing. Todd and I, in one of the upcoming episodes, are going to go over a Spirit Box session I did after that dual craziness happened all at the same time, and I got some interesting stuff there, too. A shorter session, but really, really cool and interesting. So we'll go over that as well in a future episode. But for now, how about we do a little bit of weird news?
Well, I have an affinity for weird news because on the radio, some years ago, I used to do a weird news story each day. Mm-hmm. And then for some reason, I changed it, and I like it even more because it's generally funnier. Weird news headlines. I just take the headlines, and some of them are just so odd and so weird, and it can be rather comical. And so I do like 8 or 10 of those once a day, each day during the week. And so, like I said, I do have an affinity for weird news.
Some of them are hilarious. So let's do some weird news.
And now, weird news.
All right, it's time for weird news. Now, Dave, I found 3 of these that I thought were kind of neat. And the first one I thought you'd get a kick out of because I don't know, you grew up in Brooklyn in a little bit different time era than I did, in a different place. You know, upstate New York is definitely not the same as Brooklyn. But I remember growing up as a kid, and people would warn you that, oh, you better look in the toilet before you go because there could be an alligator or a snake.
Snakes especially.
Or something in the toilet, right?
I saw one shared last week on Facebook that somebody had about snakes, and it wasn't true, but of course it still gets shared.
And I remember being a little kid and I was terrified. I mean, you know, you're scared that you're going to get bit in the ass by an alligator or a snake or something's going to happen.
Well, ironically, the headline here is the type of headline that I was talking about that I use in weird news headlines. It says, alligators in the sewer myth is true. So those are the kind of things that I use because they just have this inherent funniness to it and weirdness to it, and it's just, I just find it chuckling and entertaining.
Well, who in the world would have thought that it was true? So, New York may not actually have the alligators or the snakes in the sewer, but Florida actually has the real thing. So this story comes from the New York Post, and it was from not too long ago. It says a work crew in Oviedo, Florida, proved that the New York City urban legend was a Sunshine State reality after discovering, you ready for this? A 5-foot gator residing in a sludge-filled pipe. So they actually took video of it, and they said it was sliming up a crap storm.
Now, I guess in Florida, that shouldn't be too much of a surprise. I have had some weird stories about alligators as well, so seeing that, not a surprise. Now, if it was in New York City, that would be a little bit different.
They have rats the size of gators in New York City, but anyway, so I mean, we all know that the chances of a gator actually coming up through that little hole at the bottom of your toilet are pretty zero. But there are weird people who try to get down into the pipes, the stormwater pipes, and explore. You know, the urban explorers, they do all that craziness. And so they're warning people, don't do it because you could run into a huge gator.
And it's kind of funny because the spokesperson said, quote, just another reason not to go wandering down into the stormwater pipes. Like people apparently do that
Apparently
in Florida.
they do. Like I said, the urban explorers probably do that. You know, I watch some of these urban explorers, what do they call them? Urban X, I think. People on YouTube, and some of them are really crazy. Like, they do things that I would never in a million years do. These old places, and we're not just talking haunted or, you know, supposed to be haunted. We're talking about places that could be dangerous, and they do it all. So, you know, it's not something to mess around with, apparently. And I can only imagine how big the snakes are if they've got 5-foot gators down in there. So, interesting. Apparently, it all started with the big 1980 B movie Alligator. Do you remember that movie?
No.
I think I saw that, but not as a kid. I think it was a little bit later. I had an ex-boyfriend who was into all those B movies, and we had to watch one time. But there were movies back in the 80s, back in the 70s. There were urban legends. There were all these stories. You know, your big brother, your big sister would tell you these things to scare the hell out of you. We all been through that. So anyways, it's true. What do you think?
Supposedly, there were New Yorkers who talked about witnessing a gator crawling out of a drain in Queens. I have a hard time believing that, even if someone brought one. And why would they bring one? I suppose in New York City, anything is possible. Everything has happened, but I'm not so sure about a gator there.
No, I think we'll put that in the, I don't think it's going to happen to me, but just look twice before you sit down on the seat. All right, next news story. This one is right up your alley, and I thought you'd enjoy it. It's not really, well, it is kind of weird, but you know how some teams do different races during the games and all kinds of stuff like that? Well, and you said it's the Milwaukee ones that do the sausage race.
Yes.
Which is hilarious because we know Steve Gelbs from SNY TV actually has done it before. It's hilarious.
And for those Midwesterners, we know it's actually bratwurst.
Bratwurst, exactly. Well, this is great because the Minnesota Twins, actually have a lucky home run sausage. Here's how it went down. The lucky home run sausage safely returned to Minnesota with the Twins and their winning streak. So after hitting coach David Popkins started the superstition, he grabbed an unopened summer sausage from a table in the clubhouse, and he encouraged his players to tap it before their at-bats. So, guess what happened? No surprise here. The Twins followed with a flurry of huge hits. Edouard Julien, Ryan Jeffers, they hit back-to-back home runs in the 6th inning of the April 24th game at Target Field. And after Carlos Santana went deep into the 8th, Jeffers actually tossed the sausage to the first baseman on his return to the dugout. So they were having fun with it, too.
And then the problem was their homestand did not continue, so they had to go on the road. So what did they do? Yep, off the sausage went with them.
They took the sausage on the road. Now, I'm assuming it smelled pretty bad by then. But they double sealed it in a plastic bag and stuffed it into a shoe. On the road, they won all 6 games, which was a franchise first for a trip that long. So they pushed their win streak eventually to 11 games to match the 3rd longest in club history. And the sausage stayed in the dugout. No home runs were hit after that, but the Twins struck out only 6 times. So Jeffers, wearing a navy blue home run sausage t-shirt. They even got t-shirts. A home run sausage t-shirt. It had a salami-shaped slugger swinging for the fences, and that was in the dugout with them before the game. And it was a very interesting and fun road trip for the Minnesota Twins.
So they say processed meats aren't necessarily good for you, but if you're a baseball team, apparently they're great for you.
And when they talked to manager Rocco Baldelli, he said, it's in the fridge in the coach's room. We keep it away from the players until the last possible second when the game starts. I don't know how much more we can add to that, but they seem to have done pretty well with the home run sausage.
Even funnier is they said that the original sausage was from a baby gift. A baby gift.
I'm a little speechless on that one.
Oh, there you go.
I don't know. So, congratulations to the Minnesota Twins. That is a very interesting way of getting wins, and I think that's pretty cool. So, I leave everybody and you with this last one real quick because I thought this was just hilarious. So, apparently, there was a university that had a graduation. And the person who was the presenter, so you know how during graduation they call you up by your name and you come up and you get your diploma and it's a photo op and you shake the president's hand, the president of the university and everything. Well, this was just a comedy of errors, to say the least. So,
and that one I actually used
on
one of my weird news headlines.
And I was trying to pronounce them the way that this presenter would have, and I was laughing my ass off. So it's Thomas Jefferson University, and the professor was given a bunch of cards with the students' names, and they were given the phonetic spelling or pronunciation of the names on the cards. So instead of just going by the regular name on the card, this presenter instead chose to use the phonetic ones, and they were all wrong. So, and the poor speaker just totally apologized. Here's some of the names. So she incorrectly pronounced several nursing students' names such as Jessica, Allison, Sarah, Louise, Virginia, Stephanie, Maeve, Molly, and Elizabeth. And instead of saying Molly Elizabeth Camp, she said Malina Zabeth Cap. Now, for Maeve Elizabeth, she blurted out Maybe Lee Zubeth. And Sarah Virginia Brennings was great. It was pronounced Sayer Uvun Gingu Brinan. And I leave you with the final one. This one kind of took everybody by surprise. It took the cake. Thamome, which was Thomas Michael Canavari Jr.
I have no idea how anybody could phonetically spell that badly. I've seen phonetic spellings that I laugh at, and I have to actually write a lot of things, and sometimes we'll put phonetic spelling out there. But how do you get things like Molly and Elizabeth and Thomas even phonetically that wrong?
I don't know, but it makes me really want to know what my name would be and your name, so maybe we'll have to figure that out. Well, anyways, that was Weird News. Thanks, Dave, for coming in today and having a little fun with me, talking about the craziness in my studio and having a little fun with the weird news.
Anytime there's weirdness, it makes it a whole lot easier.
That's right. And Todd and I will be back soon. Have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Stay safe, stay loved, and stay weird.